Alright guys, if you've been following along, you've watched the last couple of videos, you're learning a little bit about how the utility operates, what the buyback rate is, why that's important, the value that we're actually getting for the kilowatt hours we're giving back to the utility company. What we're going to do right now is we're going to go through a little example, right? So you guys can just feel exactly what I run into every single day when I'm talking to homeowners about solar energy. And because it's a very confusing topic, I think, for a lot of people in Arizona, especially in the West Valley. If you're in Goodyear, Surprise, Buckeye, Peoria, you're seeing so much solar. I mean, it's everywhere in Arizona now. Um, and you hear a lot of good stories and you hear a lot of bad stories, and it's really hard to understand why. And a lot of times you hear people that had solar from a decade or 12, 13 years ago, they love it. It's like, oh, this is the best thing ever, I would go solar again in a heartbeat. And then people that got it more recently say it's a scam, it doesn't work. And so how is that possible? It's like, is the technology no longer good? Does it not work? It's like, no, that's not anything to do with it. And so we're going to walk you guys through this really quick. Just so you guys can know, the average rate per kilowatt hour currently is 18 to 21 cents per kilowatt hour in APS. This is on your typical on-peak, off-peak plan, which more than 50% of energy users in APS are on the typical time of use 4 p.m. to 7 p.m. weekdays plan. And so that's your current average rate per kilowatt hour. The current buyback rate for every kilowatt hour that I'm producing that I'm not using is 6.8 cents per kilowatt hour, right? So you can see there's a drastic difference there between the two. The average solar lease, and even if you wanted to break down a loan into the cost per kilowatt hour over the course of the term or the life of that system, you're going to come out to between 12 to 15 cents per kilowatt hour. Sometimes you get it cheaper, sometimes you get it more expensive. It depends on the company you're working with. But that's your average cost per kilowatt hour. Sometimes it's a flat rate, sometimes it's an escalator. That's neither here nor there. Doesn't matter for this video. Your average post-solar utility cost is 17 cents per kilowatt hour. And what is that? So I actually give a lot of credit to Val Barichet at Sun Solar Solutions. He took all the data from thousands and thousands of their customers that they had installed, and especially people that were still paying a utility bill with the utility company, because he wanted to figure out what the optimal amount or optimal size system is for his customers as he's selling these and as he's installing these. What he found was that the average customer post solar on average is paying 17 cents per kilowatt hour to the utility company for any kilowatt hours they're pulling back from the grid. And so, how is that possible? Well, what it is people are still buying electricity during off-peak and on-peak from the utility company, even if they have solar. And that averaged out comes out to about 17 cents per kilowatt hour, right? And you'll hear some solar people, they won't like that I say that, but that's just the math. That's just what people are actually experiencing. And the issue with that is that, 12 cents compared to 18 cents is a much better rate. But if I pay 12 cents and then I sell it back at 6.8 cents and then I have to buy it at 17 cents, you can see how it gets kind of complicated, but you can tell we're at a loss here, right? On average, homeowners are only using 30% of the energy that they're producing in the moment that it's being produced. All the excess energy is being exported. So you see 70% of the energy going back to the grid. And the reason why that's important is because of this. And I'm going to do some math with you guys just so you guys can see. So let's just imagine I use 10,000 kilowatt hours a year, right? And I want to eliminate my utility bill. I'm looking at going solar. And I would think that if I want to eliminate 10,000 kilowatt hours, that I would need to get a system that produces 10,000 kilowatt hours. And I would be wrong. And the reason why I'd be wrong is because of that 10,000 kilowatt hours, I'm only consuming 3,000 of that. And the other 7,000 I'm sending back to APS. And they're only going to pay me a credit of 6.8 cents, right? Which is what we find on APS's rate writer. That's what their buyback rate is. They're going to pay me 6.8 cents per kilowatt hour, which comes out to about $480 in credits. But here's the kicker. I have to still buy those 7,000 credits from APS, and I got to buy those at retail rates. And when I buy those at retail rates, I'm buying them at 17 cents per kilowatt hour, which adds up to almost $1,200, right? Which means that I'm upside down almost $700 if I got a 100% offset, right? So this is a big problem we're experiencing because a lot of solar companies will say 100% offset, but they're not explaining to you what that really means, right? It's not a 100% offset to your utility bill. It's a 100% offset to your consumption, and they are two very different things. So what if I want to actually eliminate my utility bill? How much would I actually have to produce? Basically, what you have to do is you have to say, okay, I'm using 10,000 kilowatt hours per year. I'm only using 3,000 of those for myself. The other 7,000 is going back to the utility company, right? I'm getting $500 worth, but I need an extra $700 worth, right? If I don't get that extra $700, then I'm still going to end up paying the utility company throughout the year. So if I took 700, right, and I divided it by, we'll call it 6 cents per kilowatt hour, 6.8 cents per kilowatt hour, I would need to produce an extra 10,000 kilowatt hours, meaning I need to produce more than double. You guys can see here, hopefully that's clear. I need to produce more than double what my consumption is in order to offset the utility cost, right? That's crazy, right? So I can't do a 10,000 kilowatt hour system if I have a 10,000 kilowatt hour consumption because I'm going to be upside down. I'd have to do a 21,000 kilowatt hour, 20,000 kilowatt hour system if I want to offset a 10,000 kilowatt hour usage. And that's why so many people are upside down when they go solar. They have no idea how this works. The solar companies, a lot of times, they don't even know how this works. They're not doing the math. They don't figure out that the utility company has a buyback rate that's screwing you. A lot of the solar guys are out there just to get money, right? They're trying to feed their families, and they don't really focus on all this stuff. They try to simplify everything. The problem is it's not that simple. I mean, it's not that complicated, but it's not simple enough to where they feel confident explaining it to a homeowner. They feel like it'll throw off the sale or whatever, right? So this is the issue that people are running into all over the West Valley, all over Arizona in general. This is the same issue in SRP too, to be honest, in any time of use utility. Any utility has time of use and has a buyback rate, and their buyback rate has been shrinking over the years. This is a big issue in California as well. This is the issue they're running into. And so the next question that I'm going to be answering in the next video is, so what do I do, right? Because I don't want to continue to pay 18 to 21 cents per kilowatt hour with the utility company. That's going to continue to go up, by the way. And it's going to go up a lot over the next 5 to 10 years as we have all these data centers moving to Arizona. And so I don't want to continue to pay that. I would like to use solar to get cheaper energy, but it sounds like it's not actually cheaper for me because I got to pay for double the amount of system that I actually need. So what do I do? And that's where storage comes into play. So this next video, I'm going to be talking to you about energy arbitrage and taking advantage of storage, combining storage with solar, so that way we're not getting screwed and taken advantage of by the utility company at their buyback rate. If you guys are following on, leave a like, leave a comment, follow me, and if you have any other questions, feel free to leave them in the comments section because I'll be making more content like this as I want to reach as many people as possible and educate them on how this works. So when you're choosing the solar company that you go with, hopefully it's me, but even if it's not, you know what you're looking for and you know what to expect, and you don't have to wait for them to educate you on how all this works.